So this is actually the dirtiest I've seen this gutter guard since we put it up last March, which is a pretty good indicator that this thing has worked. It's the end of January 2021. The leaves have been down for several months now. There's not really much to report on the gutter guard front, but I did come out this morning to take a look on the gutters and wanted to spend a couple of minutes just showing you where they stand. So even though we haven't had leaves really falling from the trees for the last couple of months, we have had a little bit of snow, we've had some rain, and I think this would just give you a good kind of perspective as to what you might expect over the winter months. This is kind of the dormancy period, if you will, for gutter guards, because there's not a whole lot of rain and there's not a whole lot of leaves or debris coming down, except maybe off of pine trees. So stay tuned and I'll give you an update. Here we're looking at MasterShield on the north side of the garage. You can see a bunch of black organic matter on it. So it's a combination of dirt and shingle granules that have worked its way off the roof. You can see a bit of a wavy pattern, so that's indicative of any snow that we've had. Just kind of pushes its way off the roof onto the gutter guard surface, and then as the snow melts, it just leaves the residue behind. So this is actually the dirtiest I've seen this gutter guard since we put it up last March, which is a pretty good indicator that this thing has worked well. You know, again, you can just see the black buildup kind of across here. So that has no real functional issue with the gutter guard. It'll do just what it needs to do. So when it rains, I don't think we're expecting rain for the next couple of days. It's either going to be rain or snow, I'm not sure which. But at this point in the end of January, you can see here that this system is still clear. We do have some small leaves, a little bit here and there, that have built up inside the weep holes that go across the MasterShield system. But as we've seen in times past, anything that gets in there generally washes out. So we'll see what happens the next time it rains, but this is what you could expect to see midwinter timeline if you had the system installed on your house. Here we're looking at the face of the MasterShield, or we're looking at the face of the gutter where the MasterShield is installed. So you can see a little bit of debris that's kind of worked its way off the top, come around and stuck to the face of the gutter. Overall, this system has done a very good job in terms of shedding that small debris from the face of the gutter. So it's very clean overall. We've got a little bit of stuff, as you can see there, hanging on now, but overall this has done a very good job from the get-go. If you go to the underside of the gutter, you can see it's pretty much the same. It's actually a little bit cleaner on the underside. So I've talked about this before, but that drip edge that hangs off the gutter guard here at the front leading edge of it does an effective job of pushing stuff away from the face of the gutter, which is why the face of the gutter is a lot cleaner than some of the other systems. This is the LeafLock system on the north side of the garage. You can see that there's a fair amount of debris sitting on top of this one. LeafFilter's got the most debris on it. This has the second most debris on it at this point. And actually, the last time I was up here, I believe this was completely covered with leaves and pine needles and debris. So quite a bit of it has actually washed off the top of it at this point. And that is a good sign, because, you know, naturally if you put a gutter guard up here, you don't want to have to mess with it throughout the year. You don't want to have to come up and clean it off 2 or 3 times a year. And this system had performed very well on the north side up until kind of the final onslaught of leaves and debris that we had. Again, you can see some of the pine needles, mostly, that are hanging out. So a lot of the leaves have vacated the surface, and we're just left with a variety of other stuff. Here's a clump of moss that has rolled off the roof, and you kind of look up the roof, you see some of that moss. Some of it's dormant, some of it's still alive. You can see the pine needles that get stuck behind it. So that's pretty much what's happened here. but I would guess it's probably 90% of the stuff that was sitting on top of this guard has since washed or blown off. Here's a good example of kind of what happens with the snow. So all that, you see this line of sediment works its way off the roof, comes down, and as it pushes forward, it kind of self-cleans the gutter guard surface there. Just gotta get that in and you can see the upside. So on the back side of that line, it's pretty clean, and on the front side of it, where it hasn't pushed across, it looks a lot dirtier. So that's some of the self-cleaning principle of the MicroMesh screen, is that the water really does do an effective job of keeping the gutter guard surface clean once the water is able to kind of push everything off of it. So that is LeafLock on the top side. If we come down to the face of it, you can see more debris sitting here. So like any of the systems that don't have a drip edge, which is the majority of them, you are more likely to get some of that debris to cling to the face of the gutter and just hang out there. So what we're seeing, has potentially been sitting up there for the bulk of the summer. The really small stuff is just some of that dirt and sediment that comes off the roof. And then if you come to the underside, you can see much of the same thing here. Here we're looking at the LeafFilter system on the north side of the garage. What you see right now is some snow or ice, I guess, that is still sitting on top of this gutter guard. But in addition to that and below that, you can see a whole lot of debris that is just packed on top of this system. So when I last was up here, we had LeafFilter was one of the two systems that still had a lot of debris sitting on top of it. And while it looks like some of that debris has blown off or washed off, you can see over here to the right where it's a little less debris hanging out. There's still quite a bit going over this system, to the point that it's mostly covered up. It actually gets a little worse to the left there. That's more what it looked like last time I saw it. So looks like that hasn't changed a whole lot, and we've lost a little bit of that debris across the top since, and now we just have a line of snow that's still lingering on here. So this system on the north side of the garage has had debris on it almost since its inception that we put it up here. Once we started getting enough debris off the trees, this one pretty much accepted it and has held on to it throughout. And we've had some pretty stiff winds in the last few months. And this garage, the back side of this garage, is facing west. So there's an equal opportunity for wind to blow through here and knock that stuff off. But in this particular case, you can see a lot of that debris is still clinging on and hanging on and now sitting underneath the snow. Here we're looking at the face of the gutter with the LeafFilter installed. So you can see some of the pine needles that are dangling off the edge of the gutter there. You can get a good perspective there. The face itself is doing a good job. So you can see a little bit of debris that is clinging to the face of this system. But overall, it too is doing a very good job. We've had, on the north side of the garage, a lot less debris clinging to the face of the gutter with the LeafFilter than on the south side. And if you look to the underside, it's also doing a very good job as it's clean across there. So having that drip edge on the front of the gutter guard is a good thing. This is the Gutterglove Easy-on do-it-yourself leaf blaster mid-priced micromesh gutter guard system from Gutterglove. It is pretty clean overall. You can see some pine needles that are hanging out at the far right side. There are a couple of them that are plugged inside the screen. This is kind of a mid-grade screen, so the screen isn't as tightly wound as some of the other systems, and as a result you can get those long needle pines, which have a pretty sharp point to them, can either lodge themselves into the screen like you see here, or potentially pass through the screen. So in this particular case, you can just see them lodged in there. Some are sitting flat and some are hanging out of it. So again, you see a lot of the debris, the small organic debris, the shingle granules, the dirt that has worked its way off the roof with the snow, just kind of hanging out on the screen. So last time I was up here, this one was pretty clean, and it is still pretty clean. We may actually have a little bit more debris up here now than we had, but overall, if it were to rain today, this one would do an effective job of taking in the water. If we step down to the face, it's a different story. There's a lot of debris that has clung to the face of this thing since the beginning of the test, and we still have a lot of debris that's sitting on the face of it. So again, you're looking at a transition of a flat surface. You can see how the gutter guard sits a little bit recessed behind the lip of the gutter there, and because it doesn't have that overhang, it just allows the debris to come around the face and stick to the front of your gutter. So these are white gutters, and you know, over a period of time, you could see how your white gutters wouldn't stay white or as white as when you put them up there. So that might be something where you'd have to clean them off on occasion. If you come to the underside, it's similar to the other systems. You can see the dirt that is built up. That's basically where the water has come around the base of it, and then it drips off the bottom. It beads and then drips from the bottom of the gutter, and it just leaves its residue there. So that's pretty typical of a system like this. This is leaf solution on the north side of the garage. You can see there's some debris here to the left. It's actually hanging out between two different gutter guard products, so I'll give it a pass there. But on the surface itself, you can see the debris that's on top. So we have some pine needles, we've got some moss, we've got some of the dirt that's come off the roof, and certainly some of the shingle granules there. So this is a system that has a series of these downward channels, and you can see how some of that smaller debris just gets wedged inside those channels. You can see some pine needles right here that are running parallel with the slots. So overall, this system is pretty clean. Here on the north side of the garage, we've got, you see what we have, so it really wouldn't have any impact if we had a decent rain. If anything, I would expect that rain to kind of blow that stuff off the top. When you come around to the face, it's a little bit different story. You can see it's a lot dirtier than the MasterShield and the LeafFilter system. And the primary difference is you can see that the leaf solution doesn't have a drip edge. So the edge of the gutter guard ends back here. So any of the water that works its way across the top then can work its way around the front of the gutter and down, and that's what tends to draw the leaves and debris with it. And you can see here the face of the gutter has got a fair bit of debris sitting on top of it. And then you come to the underside, and it's kind of a similar story, just transitions off the face down around the bottom here. This is the Clean Mesh MicroMesh gutter protection system. On the north side of the garage, you can see that it is clean overall, very clean overall. So we got a little bit of residue down here on the right. We've got a few pine needles that are hanging out on top of it. This is a screen that is pretty optimal in terms of its ability to keep the leaves and debris out, but to take in the water. What you see here is some of that organic matter. So that kind of that dark line across the screen there is some of that smaller organic matter has worked its way underneath the screen, and it hasn't gotten into the gutter, so it just wedges itself between the screen and the aluminum framework that sits behind the system. You can see a pine needle here that's was able to poke itself into the screen, and it's just dangling out, and the rest of the pine needles are just kind of hanging out on top. When you come around to the face of the gutter, you can see some of the debris that has built up over time on the front of it. So this one actually has some reasonable sized chunks of debris and a few pine needles and whatever else that has stuck to the face of the gutter. You can also see these kind of dark streaks here, these vertical lines. That's called tiger striping. So when the water falls out of the sky or it comes off the roof and it blends with the dirt that's in the sky and the air or on your roof, that water, when it streaks off the edge of the gutter, creates those dark stripes, which is called tiger striping. So what that tells you with this system is that there's been a fair amount of water that has streaked over top of the gutter guard. And I was looking back at one of the videos the other day from earlier in the spring when it was raining really hard out, and this particular system had a whole lot of water that was coming across the face of the gutter. So that's what you would expect with a gutter that was just open, because when the water just falls out of the sky, it hits the edge of the gutter, works its way down. But in this particular case, we had water that was not going into the gutter because of the gutter guard not taking the water, and that tiger striping is something that you would see. So if you went outside, if you've got light colored gutters and you go look at your gutters right now, you'd likely see that tiger striping on the front face of your gutters. You come to the underside here, again, fair bit of dirt that has built up over time on this system and is indicative of what we've seen. So this system has been a strong performer in terms of keeping the leaves and debris off the top of the gutter or off the top of the gutter guard, but has had some issues with the water aspect. Now that we've looked at the top of the gutter guards, I'm going to rank them in order of 1 to 6 here on the north side of the garage in terms of where we stand at the end of January for the amount of debris that is on top of the gutter guards. So the number 1 performer is MasterShield. The number 2 performer is the Clean Mesh system. Number 3 is Leaf Solution. Number 4 is Gutterglove Easy-on. Number 5 is the LeafLock system, and the worst performer on the north side of the garage is LeafFilter. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons and ding the bell, and you'll be notified the next time we upload a video. But what we're not seeing right now is any water dripping over the gutter guard. So making the assumption that there's some melting taking place, the water has to be going somewhere.